thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us today to listen to Lisa discuss about retaining talent through these turbulent times. Lisa Ryan.
Well, good morning. I'm really glad you're here today because you think about it, just a year ago, actually almost exactly a year ago, we were talking about that unemployment was at an all-time low. And then of course, a year later, it's in that all-time high range. And yet it's more important than ever to make sure that you are keeping your top talent from becoming someone else's. So as we get started, I want to find out exactly where you are tuning in from. So go ahead and in the chat box, put down where you're coming in from. I am from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised. I'll share a little bit about my background in a while. I see we have Charlotte in the house. We have some North Carolina. We have Dallas. Oh, I hear you're getting snow again. Toronto, Tulsa, Iowa, South Florida. So we have people coming in from all over, which is awesome. Detroit, in all caps. We're from Detroit, St. Louis. So welcome. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, to give you an idea, since we're not meeting in person, to see where we're coming in from all over the country. It also gives me the opportunity to see how chatty you're going to be, because I am using the chat quite a bit throughout our time together, just because it's fun. Because the last year, again, we've seen so many different changes to our language coming in. We've been sheltering in place, social distancing, stay-at-home orders, mandatory curfews, and of course, who could forget? You're on mute, Bob. How many of you, your life will be great if you never have to say, here, you're on mute again? And the funny thing is, I do this all the time, okay? And I still hear, Lisa, you're on mute. It's like you're trying to be all nice and polite and stuff, and then you try to talk, and well, that's just beyond it. So we've gotten a lot better, and being able to do these types of programs on using technology really is one of the gifts that has come out of COVID, because we're giving access to people. But what's happened is a lot of different emotions have happened because of this. And these emotions go, day to day, hour to hour sometime. So again, we're going to do a quick chat poll on a scale of 1 to 6. I want to find out where you're at right now, because maybe you're at a point where you're angry, or you're angry again. Oops. Nope, not ready for the poll yet. All right, let me go back. All right. Okay. Maybe you're angry because you know what? We should be able to go to restaurants without wearing masks and know that our kids are going to school and all this stuff. It's not fair that we've been cooped up for over a year. So maybe you're still at that anger point. Maybe at number 2, you're fearful. A year ago, we were saying, I don't know anybody that has that virus. I mean, it can't be real. But now more than a third of Americans have either lost somebody or know somebody who has succumbed because of the coronavirus. And we're getting this close to having vaccines for everybody, but there's still that fear surrounding it. Maybe you are at neutral. You're like, Lisa, I am a total introvert. So this whole social distancing thing is right up my alley. As a matter of fact, if I never have to hug a stranger again, I am totally okay with that. At a number 4, you're hopeful because you are starting to see vaccines coming out. Maybe you are. I know I'm getting mine on Saturday. Woohoo! Most of my family are either teachers or in healthcare, so they've already gotten theirs. But we're starting to see this light at the end of the tunnel. As a matter of fact, last Wednesday, I had my first live convention that I actually flew on an airplane to Texas and spoke there. And it was, I got to check in for a flight and I got to board an airplane and sleep in a hotel. So there's this hopefulness because there's this sense of normalcy that's coming back. At number 5, you're happy. You're like, Lisa, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. I don't have to get on planes and I don't have to sleep in hotels. I don't even have to get dressed from the waist down if I don't want to. I've completely changed my business and this has been a good change for me. And of course, number 6, well, you're just happy there's beer. So go ahead and in the chat, where are you? 1 angry, 2 hopeful, 3 neutral, 4, let's see, that was fearful was 2, 4 hopeful, 5 happy, and 6 happy there's beer. Again, I love doing this poll because at the beginning of the pandemic, we had lots of 1s and 2s coming up because people just didn't know what to do with themselves. We got 5 or 6 months into it, and then we started seeing more of the 3s and 4s. And now, because it's just dragging on, we were seeing more 1s and 2s, and now with the vaccine. So, and this group is right there. Of course, there's always my 6s in the group, you know, my people. But we see the predominance of people are at 4. So it's nice that we're just starting to see that semblance of normalcy. And the thing that's important to know for you is no matter where you are right now, other people are experiencing this whole thing differently. And that's where we're coming from. We're coming from these deeper human connections than we had before, of looking at the whole person and building those relationships in a deeper way, whether it's with our customers, whether it's with our family, whether it's with our employees. We need to have that because the one thing that's really been missing through that is that basic human connection. I know I have one convention, our National Speakers Convention coming up, and they're having a live event in Las Vegas this year, and they're actually having different colors on the name tag. So if one color will be if you are okay to hug, one color will be if you are okay with a fist bump or elbow, and one color will be like, don't come anywhere within 6 feet of me. So we're looking for ways that we can give those huggers, those people, the opportunities to do so. And I see those numbers are still coming in. So good. I'm really happy to see the number of 4s that we have there. Okay, so now we're ready for the first poll. And that is, you know, what are some of the things that you're dealing with right now? And this is multiple choice. You know, you can put down what you're dealing with, whether it be employee burnout, you know, people still working remote, having to deal with employees leaving, whether you can't find new workers, or you're just like at number 5, you're like, hey, I'm okay. So go ahead and run that poll, and we'll see until the majority of people that you see are answering it, and then we can broadcast the results to see where everybody is. Right now, working remotely, I know for a lot of you, maybe you've been working at home for a year now. I have my cousin who works actually in downtown Boston at a bank, and she's been working at home for more than a year, and she's not looking forward to ever having to take the train into downtown Boston again. So we'll have different things to think about as far as how we're going to up that flexibility for working with employees in the future. So if you want to show us the results of that. Okay, employee burnout. You know what? That is a big one because number one, that we're dealing with so many more things than we had to before, because not only are we focused on work, but now we're working all day, we're coming home and doing the schoolwork with the kids at night and trying to get, you know, some self-care exercise or something in, and all of this stuff is going on. Or maybe you're down people in the office or at the plant because you have people that have to be quarantined because they have COVID. So all of these different things, working remotely, it's good to see that you're not dealing with a lot of employees dealing. And look at that, 32% of people saying we're okay. And so again, a year into it, we've really done a nice job adjusting. So if you want to close that poll, let me get back to my screen here. Okay, a little bit of my background. I am actually born and raised Cleveland, Ohio. I've lived here my entire life completely by choice. The rest of my family has kind of flown the coop, but I started my career as an executive recruiter. I'm actually one of the few people on the planet who can say they sold to their mother. Mom hated that job, but I said, Mother, you have got to stay there at least 90 days because I have a guarantee and I can't afford to give back the commission I made on you. Thankfully, Mother was there for 2.5 years. We're still close. From there, I went into industrial sales where I sold products like electrical cord and cable into the maintenance environment. And then I spent 7 years in the welding industry. And yes, I do weld. And actually, that was one of my favorite jobs because I love seeing how things are made, whether it's going into steel mills or auto plants. I actually had the opportunity to go into the salt mine. So imagine that. I was a mile down below Lake Erie and 4 miles out, which 2 lessons I learned. Number one, don't go with the new guy because we got lost. Thankfully, we saw the conveyor belt, and we knew which way that we could go out to safety. The other thing when you're in the salt mine is they give you this little metal tag with a number on it. And if you don't know exactly what that number is, I found out later that that's basically your remains identification tag. So a little freaky while you're 4 miles underground. And then for the last 7 years of my career, I spent it in healthcare. In these jobs, I mean, I've had worked in a variety of environments, worked with a variety of bosses. My favorite boss happened to be my boss in the welding industry. And then there, of course, are the bosses that I just refer to as he who shall not be named. But when it comes to developing these strategies for retention, it's not only what I've seen myself, but working in this industry for 11 years now with clients and sharing what's working. So we have 10 strategies for you to increase retention. And this is actually probably one of my favorite clip arts of the Mona Lisa with the mask on it. So I just like this one. But the first one you want to do is to build or retain that trust of talking to your team, of being transparent, of sharing the effects on the business, sharing the impact on the business, not just the bad news, sharing the good news, sharing the ways that you've maybe given back as an organization, as a leader in your organization, of being sharing some of the life hacks that you've developed. Listening to your employees, but just building that trust. Because again, we saw at the beginning with that poll that we're kind of all over the place when it comes to what we're dealing with right now. And trust is the ultimate. A lot of times what happens when we go to these kind of conventions and everything, or online programs, and we come back and we write down, we take pages and pages of notes, and we have like 42 things that we're going to take back to the office. And of course, when do you want those 42 things put into place? Yesterday. And what are your employees saying? Oh no, she just came back from a convention. Let's just ignore everything that they do for the next 2 weeks until things go back to normal. So in the course of this program, you're going to have lots of different strategies, but pick the one, maybe 2, that resonate most with you, that you're going to be able to implement and commit to for the long term, because we don't want this to be just another flavor of the week. A lot of times what happens when it comes to being transparent with your employees, of sharing your numbers. On my podcast recently, I interviewed Theo Etzel. He's the the chairman of Conditioned Air down in Naples. And several years ago, he decided to go with what he calls open book leadership, and that he opened up the books and he shared with his employees the numbers. Now that did a couple things for the company. Number one, employees were coming up to him and saying, thank you so much for trusting us. Now he wasn't sharing everybody's salary, but what he was doing is he made it a game. And this may be something that you can adapt in your company that would be appropriate for what you do. Like Theo would put a quiz out to his people and say, how much do you think we paid for gas for the vehicles last month? And the employees would take a guess, and then he would show them the real number and they would be, oh, didn't realize that. How much do you think that we pay for health insurance? How much do you think that vacation time costs us? And so little by little, he was able to show the employees that they weren't just, shoveling dollars into the back of their pickup trucks, that they were actually were working on pretty slim margins, but it gave the employees a different level of understanding. To set realistic expectations. Now, as we're coming out of this and things are going back to normal, maybe we can look at bigger numbers. But when you're still dealing with remote employees and employee burnout, of looking at what you can get accomplished in the time you have with the resources that you have, and keeping in mind that we want to not overburden our employees in the process and then end up losing them. Updating regularly, whether this be 5-minute stand-up meetings in the morning, whether it be videos from the leaders of the company, whether it be just, some way to keep in touch, to let people know what's going on. And then also keep in touch personally. Now, this is not the time to just focus on business. How are you doing? What can I do to support you? And it doesn't matter if you're a leader, manager, C-suite, or you're a team member. Whatever level of the organization you're at, it's important to connect with people and help them as much as you can to get through this together. From a customer standpoint, if there are service delays, because we've seen a lot of disruption in the supply chain, acknowledge what's going on. Another gentleman that I had on my podcast was talking about the fact that they're a job shop and they've reached out to their competitors if they weren't able to get a job, or, can you help us out with this? Can you help us out with this level of the project? Because it's not the fact that this is my business and I'm turning it over to my competitors. This is serving the customer and making sure that any service delays are as small as possible. Apologizing for mistakes. Again, they're happening. I don't know about you, but this year I was getting I think the latest Christmas card that I got this year that was postmarked on December 3rd reached me on February 24th. So we're seeing delays everywhere. Some we can handle, or we can take care of, and others are just out of our control. So again, it's acknowledging that there's issues and then seeing what you can do to over deliver on service in the future. Not that we're going to, spend all of our time making it up to our customers, but we want to make sure that we're keeping, just like we want to keep the employees, we also want to keep the customers. Show compassion. This was a video, and since then, unfortunately, Arne Sorensen, the president or the chairman of the Marriott Corporation, has passed away. But when the when the pandemic first started, last April or May, he posted this video on YouTube. And you could tell he was a very sick man at the time. He lost his battle to cancer since then. But he had this beautiful, heartfelt message to his hundreds of thousands of employees all across the world. And it was one that, if you're going to watch it, bring a box of, bring a couple tissues with you, because you're going to need it, especially knowing the end of the story. But it's that level of connection from leadership that employees want to have that connection. They want to understand, what's going on with the organization and realize that you're human too. That you're also going through these, and also that you care about them. Because when it comes to, building that trust, that compassion, the Gallup organization, the home of the Gallup poll, finds that employees who strongly agree that their leader makes them feel enthusiastic about the future are 69 times more likely to be engaged. So we think about, the face that you are putting on at work, and the same face that you're putting on for your family at home, because there's, we all need those connections too. You don't know what necessarily happened to that person 5 minutes before they came into your office. So just looking at ways that you can look at the gifts of COVID, look at the gifts for the future that that have happened as a result of this. And so some of the ways that you can elevate that connection is to stay connected. Think about those people that that are living on their own, that may be lonely, to stay connected, focusing on what you can do to help them, putting yourself in their shoes. I don't have kids, I have cats, but I certainly know a lot of my customers have had to deal with the whole not knowing what's going on with school. Be kind, cut yourself and others some slack. Oops. This is the time to, there's the part of me that wants to say, oh, I had all this extra time. I should have written 10 books and I should have developed an online program and I should be a whiz at all this technology stuff. You know what? We're all going through our own stuff. So cut yourself some slack. Look for positive intent. Just assume that people are doing the very best they can with what they have. And then look for ways to help others. I know a lot of companies transitioned overnight. I'm sure that many of your organizations did the same thing. And if you did do something where you pivoted, and I know we all hate that word now, but you pivoted your business one day. I know in Cleveland, we had a lot of our microbreweries. One day they're making beer, the next day they're making hand sanitizer, or they're in the plastics industry. One day they're doing injection molding, the next day they're making masks. So if that was something that you've done in your company where you kind of flipped it to be able to contribute to that greater mission, you can go ahead and share that in the chat. I think I have a couple other slides where we'll be talking about a similar thing, because sometimes when you're typing in the chat, it takes a little bit to actually put that paragraph in there. By the same token, the ideas that you have that you're sharing there may be just what somebody on this program needs to hear. We're not in the same room together having those hallway conversations, but we can still look for those opportunities to connect with each other. Next, we want to prioritize well-being. Because if you think about it, several of you, the biggest answer there was that employee burnout. So looking for ways that you can focus on their financial, physical, and psychological health. Is there some kind of program that you can do, short-term loans for employees to help them get through? Just being as creative as you can, considering immediate support. And then those long-term positive approaches that as an organization, being creative. Now that's what people are looking for. It's like, I want to know that my company cares about me and not just because of me being a cog in the wheel. I want to know that they care about me and my health as a human being, mentally, physically, all of that too. So focusing on that, because if you look at people like me, again, I don't have kids. I do have a cat, Tinkerbell, that likes to be on Zoom videos. She has not walked in the room, but if at some point you hear loud meowing, she's probably bringing me a toy of some kind, because she does that at the most inappropriate times. But last Halloween, my dad had a stroke in 2011. And he was able to live on his own until about 2018, where we moved him to an assisted living facility and he's been thriving there. He just loves the social activity. Well, last Halloween, they had hundreds of kids going through there and going from door to door with the residents in their little costumes. And it was just so fun. Just so you know, my dad doesn't normally wear a clown wig around all the time. But then, of course, March 15th of last year, when his facility shut down, I picked up his laundry in the morning, and by the afternoon, they said, by the way, you'll just have to leave the laundry at the door. You're not allowed in anymore. And I'm thinking, okay, month, two, whatever, that this will work. And no. Well, my dad turned 79 on June 25th. And my dad's a hugger. And I told the nurse manager, we need to make this happen. We need to have that hug happen. So on June 25th, wearing a hazmat suit, because my brother is a retired fireman, N95 mask and gloves, I was able to hug my dad. Now, the funny thing is, if you see that picture to the left, he came out with his walker and he kind of looked me up and down like, what is going on with you, girlfriend? And I said, guess what we get to do today? And yes, he just looked at me like, what? I said, we get to hug. He threw that walker to the side and we had a great hug. That was the last time, though, that I was able to hug my dad. So I share this with you because especially if you if either you or you have employees or friends that are dealing with parents who are cooped up in facilities that they can't see, not only is it having a devastating impact on the residents and the elderly themselves, but it's really impacting the family. So we want to take that into consideration. Oops. Being seen even when you're not present. Sharing your optimism. We talked about the importance of that, that's what employees are looking at from their leaders. Sharing what you're doing to face your challenges. Staying connected with your frontline leaders. Maybe there's, your company's too big for you to reach out to all the employees individually, but make darn sure that your first line supervisors are connecting with their employees and asking for stories, asking for ideas, and sharing those ideas with people there. And really aligning with your purpose is number 4. And looking for ways to give back, learning the lessons for the future. What are you doing today that you will continue doing in the future? And looking at those true north values, because employees, we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And so if there's things that you've done during this pandemic, whether it be collecting food or helping out financially or making products that support, make sure that you are sharing that information with your employees so that they know that they played this small role in making the world a better place through this difficult time that we're going through. Anything that you're doing, and again, I didn't see anybody put that in the chat, but if there's something that you did as an organization to give back, or maybe you've seen somebody in your community. I know one of my banking clients, actually, they did, what did they call it? They called it a cash mob. And what they did is they would pick a particular small business in their town, and they would just encourage like a 1 hour or a couple hours on a particular day for people to just go and patronize that business. They called it a cash mob. And it was something that saved the business. In Cleveland here, there was an ice sculpting company, Elegant Creations. And if you think about, besides the meeting industry, an industry that was probably devastated, ice sculptures, no weddings, no meetings, nothing. So what this company did is they carved 35 beautiful, beautiful ice sculptures and lit them up. And they had a drive-through that you could drive through and take a look. They had it set up like a park. It was $20 a car, and you could go through. They had 800 cars a night going through this. It was spectacular. And again, it saved their business. So if we see that Suzette said many of the locations donated face masks to hospitals and other frontline workers. Excellent. I know from my 7 years in medical sales, I still had lots of masks and gloves that I still had. And so I actually donated those at the time when N95s were really hard to come by. I had some of those and I gave them to my dad's facility. Now, just so the workers who are taking such good care of my dad could get that. So again, it's just these little things that we're doing. Being factual. Now, and I know that the things change on almost a daily basis, it seems, when it comes to, does this work? Does this work? What vaccine do you want? What vaccine is better? Now, look at reputable sources, the CDC, the WHO, real sources of research and information instead of course, what you heard from your mother's brother's sister's cousin's mother on Facebook. We want to minimize the scare. And again, now that we're coming out of it a little bit more, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, but we still want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're being as factual as we can. And one of the things, and I know that there is the waging, mask debate, whether or not you believe that masks work and you don't want to wear them and you're just looking forward to the day that all the mask mandates go away. We look back at the other people that may still have that fear, that may be immunocompromised, that may be living with somebody who's immunocompromised. So when you're bringing that philosophy of mask wearing into the workplace, it's not that it's a mandate to protect yourself. We're coming from an area of respect for others. And right now, again, research says that they work, research says not so much. But if we're helping to respect others and make them feel safer, that's a bonus. Communicating frequently. Again, checking in. If they're remote, even more important to check in. When you're doing Zoom meetings, having people come on camera. That is so important. And it's not so that you can make sure that they're actually paying attention and not checking email, but it gives us the opportunity to see people. Like, I really appreciate those of you who are on camera today. It's nice to see faces. And in the workplace, when you're connecting with with the people who you work with, that's a really important thing to do. And not just during meetings, but virtual happy hours or team building exercises. Goodness knows there's so many places online that you can find that. Scavenger hunts, online scavenger hunts has become big. Letting people introduce their furry children and their children, because we've become a lot more human through this whole thing. Asking about people's well-being and really listening. When we're on video, we have a much better opportunity to see how people are doing. And again, at the beginning, when this all happened, it was only when I was on camera. And when I present, I still do, hair and makeup and all that. But at the beginning, it's like, oh, I'll never be on camera without looking perfect and without having a perfect background and locking my cat out of the room and all of that. And what's happened is we've just become a lot more human. Tinkerbell walks in, okay, hey, here's the world's greatest cat. So, using video, you have the opportunity to experience this live right now. You'll also have the opportunity to go back and watch the recording. But the nice thing about it is that you have your own video camera that you carry around with you all day long. And so things in the office, you as a leader sharing videos, making opportunities for your employees to do the same thing. I had one of my clients that they had a video Friday. It was a Friday Strong, they called it. And each Friday, employees from different departments would submit a video that shared their greatest tips for the week or something that they learned or they did. And so once they got started with it, it was just a fun way to learn from each other, but it also gave them the opportunities to brainstorm, to work together, and to have some fun with it, because a lot of times we're taking ourselves way too seriously. So just looking for ways to have that fun, sharing what you know. So not only having that resource library for your employees to learn from, but taking advantage of the wisdom that you already have working for you. I have one of my clients that they actually had one of their employees took that the financial university, Dave Ramsey's financial university. And one of the things that they gave this employee the opportunity to do was to hold little classes for, do some lunch and learns for his fellow coworkers. It made him feel good because he was being seen for his expertise. It made the employees learn things that were good for their own financial health. And there was that mutual respect that was going back and forth because they were able to see that employee than more than just a person on the production line. So we just look for ways to be creative. And again, seeing people from face to face. I think one of the greatest gifts that has come from COVID for me is family Zoom. We have been doing this now twice a week for almost a year. In April, it'll be a year. I have to go back and find out the exact date. But I remember I called my mother and I said, I know, Mom, let's do a family Zoom. My mom's like, I don't like any of that technology. I'm not going to do that. And I could have given her the easy way out and just gone on FaceTime like we had done before. But instead I said, nope, we're going on Zoom. Here's the link. And so the first time it was me, my mom, and my stepsister. And my mom learned how to use Zoom. And then from there, we actually got it to the point that now it's twice a week. Wednesday nights, it's just the United States-based family. And on Saturdays, we have international family Zoom, where we have all of these states included, and we have international cousins from England, Barbados, Trinidad, and Canada. This has given me such an opportunity to get to not only know my relatives much more than I ever have before. My aunt and uncle and cousin in Boston, I mean, we are on the phone twice a week, because they are the most consistent. My niece, Brittany, who is on the, I think it's your right-hand side. She has her face kind of like this in the middle there. She announced her pregnancy on Zoom. We had a baby shower for her on Zoom. And now Isla, my new beautiful great niece, is on Zoom regularly. And she lights up when she sees all the faces on the camera. But looking for ways that you can connect with people. And this is not just for the workplace, connecting with your family, because the one thing that this has helped us do, especially when we were all in stay-at-home orders and stuff, it was just helping each other going through this. That's what we want. We want that connection. So what are some of the ways that you are communicating with your team? Go ahead and put that in the chat. As far as, are you using Slack? Are you using GroupMe? Are you having Zoom meetings? Are you meeting in person, teleconference? If there's any unique ways maybe that you're doing that may be helpful to someone else, go ahead and put that in the chat, because it's not just, so Teams meetings, Skype meetings. There's certainly, so in person, we have Skype, Zoom, some face-to-face. And it's looking at all the different ways. I know that email has been around forever and a day, and I don't know about you, but my email, it seems like it's almost quadrupled from what it used to be, because that's like the first line of defense now. We're just sending out emails, where instead trying to kick it up a notch, picking up the phone, sending a text, using an app like Slack or GroupMe. So in person and Skype. So I see a lot of Skype there and in person, which is great. We want to connect in lots of different ways. And most of all, find out from your employees their preferred way of communicating. And so communicate solutions, not just the issues. How are you dealing with online services instead of, always in person? How are you making the transformation to online events and meetings? What's changed in your delivery service? I mean, if nothing else, we've seen so many examples of restaurants and different services that are now completely online, or pickup, or delivering to your car, or touchless this and touchless that, asking for ideas and implementing those ideas. So if there's any solutions that you have found that have worked for you, I'm going to encourage you again to put that in the chat. Let's see, it was last February, and I had just been hired by a church to work with the minister on his presentation skills. They wanted him to be more dynamic. So I was supposed to go to the church, watch him preach, and coach him in person. And then it was almost like the second the contract was signed, bam, COVID happened. And so obviously we couldn't do that. Actually, they weren't even having church services because the church was shut down. So we did our coaching online, which again was a unique experience for me. But then he started doing his church services on FaceTime Live. And instead of having 50 people in the pews, he had 350 people from all over the country tuning in, including congregants that hadn't been able to get to church for transportation issues were now coming back. Now, if I would have told Tom at the beginning of the pandemic, I know what you should do. You should go to Facebook Live and start doing your services because that's going to give you a brand new expansion of your message. He would have said, Lisa, that is crazy talk. You know, our congregants are elderly. They're not on Facebook. They'll never go for it. But they did. And it's expanded. And they're not going back. You know, hybrid meetings, virtual meetings are here to stay. So just if there are solutions that you've had, you know, whether or not you put it in the chat, but think for yourself. Maybe that's one thing that you want to do this afternoon, is think about what you were doing last year and what you're now doing, what you've implemented since then, and what you're going to use going forward, being very strategic in what's going on. Now, I do have a gift for you. This is my latest book, Manufacturing Engagement, 98 Proven Strategies to Attract and Retain Your Industry's Top Talent. All you're going to do is text the word engage to 66866, and you will get the link to the PDF of the book. The nice thing about this, there's 98 different ideas in there that you can adapt to really any organization. Most of them cost very little time, cost very little money. But a lot of times what happens is we come to a program like this, we have all of these ideas, and then the program ends and they just go out of our mind. So having a resource like this, it gives you ideas to kind of shake it up a bit. So what you'll do when you text that word, the 66866, and text engage without the quotes, you'll get a text back from me, which is amazing since I'm standing up here, that says to give me your first name and email address. The reason I ask for first name is because if your email address is mikesmith@abc.com, it's easy to say, hey, Mike. But if your email address is hotbikerchick@yahoo, I don't really want to go there. So it just makes it easy. Oh, thank you so much, Leonardo. If you are outside the United States, you'll send me an email because, yeah, I found out the hard way when I was speaking in Canada that join by text does not work outside of the country. So I will be putting up my email address. Also, Suzette, if you want to put that in the chat there, it's just lisa@grategy.com. Yeah, you're right, Fernando. It does not work from Mexico. So send me an email, and I will also making these slides available. So you'll be able to see that. And I'll be putting up my social media and my email at the end too. So just make sure to send me an email, lisa@grategy.com. That works all over the world. Okay. All righty. Let's see if there's anything. All right. So we want to be tactical, like I just said, of looking at what we're doing now, how we've pivoted, how we've changed the way that we're doing business, and what we can use going forward. And some of the ways that we can do that is, again, considering those immediate challenges to the customers and workforce. After a year, we're kind of getting used to this, but there's still some challenges that people may be going through that you just ask, how can we support you? How can we help? Addressing any near-term cash management issues. I know that there's a lot of businesses that are hurting, a lot of companies that have gone out of business, particularly in restaurants and hospitalities. It's just sad to see the number of them closing. Creating that plan to return to business. And again, looking at that flexibility. If you've had employees who have been working remote for a year now, and then all of a sudden you're saying you're going back to the office 9 to 5 every day, we've already proven that we can be successful working remote. So our flexibility has probably increased a lot just because we've been able to see, a year ago when my husband was furloughed for 8 months, and he's in accounting, and their whole philosophy was, you can't work from home because you're an accountant. And yet, for the 2 weeks before they furloughed him, he did exactly that. And then next month, when we go to Florida for our 25th wedding anniversary, we were supposed to go to Europe, but now we're going to Naples, Florida. But Scott will actually have to, when we come home, he will be working from home for that week. So again, businesses who never thought that they could be flexible with the place of work have now been much more flexible. And so again, just keeping track of what you can do going forward for your business and keeping that healthy perspective. You know, we look at that glass half empty, glass half full. You know, focus on what's best for the majority of your employees, not just you. Follow the recommended precautions, even if it feels like it's overkill, even if you don't necessarily believe that anything's going to happen to you. Like I said, I've personally had experienced so many of my friends who have gotten the virus and have had long-term results, long-term health effects because of it. Taking care of yourself. I will tell you, when you are on Zoom meetings or Skype meetings or team meetings all day long, it's really easy not to move. There were some weeks, and this is really embarrassing to even share, but where I would look at my step count and it was like 336 steps today. I'm like, that can't continue to happen. We need to look out for ourselves personally. And to acknowledge excellence, know that people are doing the very best that they can. So when it comes to recognition, you know, 92% of workers are more likely to take the action that they've been recognized for. So being transparent, not just saying, hey, thanks, because the employees are saying like, what are you thanking me for? You've never thanked me. Being specific. Thank you so much for taking care of Mrs. Smith on the phone. You know, I know she was really aggravated. You have a real way with customers, and thank you for that. And just being able to express that appreciation. The 6-to-1 positivity ratio is based on a study by Marshall Lasada, who found that on high-performing teams, for every one negative comment that they hear at least 6 positives. And this isn't all, oh, yay, everything you do is so good. This is, you know, that's a good start to an idea. Let's see how we can build on it. So it's respectful communication. On an average performing team, the number drops in half. It's 3 positives for every 1 negative instead of 6. And at 3-to-1, you're at neutral. Employees are doing exactly enough work so that they don't get fired. And then on a low performing team where all your problem children hang out, the number is miserably 0.3-to-1. So basically 3 times more negatives than positives. Look at what you can do. And we have our second and final poll coming up of how do you recognize your employees? And again, this is another multiple choice on there to see all the different ways of saying thank you, you know, being specific while you're doing that. Gift cards, go ahead and run the poll if you have that up. If not, you can put it in the chat. There it is. Gift cards. Now, the magic thing with gift cards is that it's not just going to your local coffee shop and, you know, buying all the same coffee cards, because you might give that to an employee and they're like, I don't like that. I'm a McCafe girl. Or, you know, I don't even drink coffee. What am I going to do with this? Or you give another one, it's like, woohoo, coffee. So personalize it. One of the hints that's in the manufacturing engagement book is the all about me sheet. And that lets you find out things like favorite candy bar, favorite $5 or $10, $20 gift card. So you can personalize those. Time off right now when you're looking at that employee burnout that we have, and that time is the one thing that we can't get enough of and we can't get back. Milestone achievements, you may be looking at making those shorter. Instead of 3 years or 5 years before they get recognized the first time, why not make it 1 year? You know, have a special incentive for the people that stayed with you the 1 year, because if they stay with you 1 year, there's a good chance they'll stay a second year. Hopefully we won't see any we don'ts, but how are we doing with the responses to that? We ready to show the responses? All right, so saying thank you regularly. So we have some people with gift cards and time off. Okay, good. And I'm so glad that it was 0% on we don't. So that's good to see. Oops, let me go back. And different ways we can do that. We can call them on the phone. Oops. We can call them on the phone. We're being specific, writing it up in the newsletter. When you see people, when you want to acknowledge them, maybe copy upper leadership on it. When you're sending out those congratulatory emails, sharing, helping to spread the word in as many ways possible. Now we have just a couple minutes left. So if you have any questions or ahas, go ahead and put those in the chat. And also, let me get back to my regular screen. Okay. It looks for some reason I'm not able to see the chat. So Suzette, if you see something in the chat, just let me know. The other thing that I want to do is, one thing that you're going to do as a result of our time together. Commit to yourself, whether you put it in the chat or you're just doing it for yourself, one of those 10 things that you can do or that you will commit to doing, go ahead and share that. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is a really easy way to do that. All you'll do is you'll take out your phone, you'll open up your LinkedIn app, you'll look for the four squares at the top right corner and just basically point your camera at the screen and you'll connect. The reason why you may want to connect with me on LinkedIn is that I have lots of resources there. I post my podcast episodes, I post articles, I post almost daily videos. I have hundreds of videos there. Actually, I'm going live this afternoon. I'm doing a live interview on LinkedIn. It'll go to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube with a woman who does basically preparedness for active shooter training. So it should be a really interesting episode. So connect with me there. If you did not get the join by text the first time, there it is again, 66866. And as promised, here is all my contact information. I know that it was in the chat as far as my email. If you are international, first of all, welcome to the program. That's the other really cool thing. No passports required. You can just show up here, which is awesome. But if you'd like to get a copy of the book or connect with me, there is my email. And the nice thing about that is that I am simply a reply away.